Hi guys, I'm Mama Bear to Many. I am mom to 14 children. 12 of my children still live here at home. And today we went to something called Hometown Jubilee. And at Hometown Jubilee, they have like a parade and they throw out candy and actually bubbles this year. The kids had a great time doing that. And then they actually have tons of free books. So we went through the books, and some of the kids like just picked out books that they were interested in. They'll show them to me. I'll say yes or no. They can grab what they would like, and then I picked a bunch of books along with my oldest daughter. We looked to see what we thought the kids would like for us to read out loud, and then we got a couple of our favorites as well. So I thought I'd go over what we got today. So here we go. Look at all those beautiful books. They are gorgeous. I am like a kid in a candy store when it comes to books. I totally am. So let's go and review all the books that we got. Hi guys, so what just happened? I always do this with my camera. It's so frustrating. The easiest way for me to do like these face-to-face talks with you is on my laptop, just on that camera there. And it is terrible. It always messes with me. And today, again, it messed with me. So I recorded 30 minutes of a video with all these books here that I was doing. And then I ran up after 30 minutes, it automatically stops. So it stopped. And then I did the other half. Well, only the other half saved. The first half didn't save. So I got a little irritated. Then I ate some ice cream. Now I'm ready to do it over again. Okay. So I'm just going to show you some of the books that we got today. This is about a boy who wants to become a bullfighter. Arrow Over the Door. For young Samuel Russell, the summer of 1777 is a time of fear. The British Army is approaching and the Indians in the area seem ready to attack. When Stan Straight enters the Quaker meeting house where Samuel worships, the two boys share an encounter that neither will forget. Told in alternative viewpoints, The Arrow Over the Door is based on a true story. The Fighting Ground. He may just be 13, but Jonathan knows he's ready to go to war against the British. He can handle a gun. He yearns for battle, for the glory, just like his brother and cousin. So when Jonathan hears the tavern bell toll, calling men to fight, he runs to join them. He doesn't realize that in just 24 hours, his life will forever be altered by the war, by his fellow soldiers, by the terrible choices he must make. So the first video I did when everyone was watching a movie, but now it's like snacking crazy time. So you may hear some background noise. My daughter, she just wanted me to get this book, and I said that was fine. She loves horses. Any books in here that are horses or like Native American, most likely it's for my 7-year-old. Those are the two things that she wants to read the most about currently. So yeah, I have another girl who read a book about slavery, and she wanted to read more about that type of stuff too. Most of these books will actually be for read alouds. A book like this size is something that like we would read in a day, no problem. Well, there's a picture. Something that we would read in a day as a read aloud, me and my older daughters. Jeremy Sims watches from the porch of a general store as the weekly bus from Jackson comes through his town. His neighbor, Stacy Logan, and Stacy's brothers and sisters are there to see their grandfather off on a trip. Jeremy's friend, Joas Williams is taking a bus to his new job, but Joas and Logan are black. And in Mississippi in 1930s, black people can't ride the bus if that means there won't be enough room for white people to ride. When several white passengers arrive at the last minute, the driver sends Joyous and Stacy's grandmother off the bus. Then comes a terrifying moment that unites all townspeople in a nightmare that will change their lives forever. This will be a book that like somebody older can just read by themselves. I probably won't read that out loud. All about Ben Franklin. This is Guns for General George Washington, A Story of American Revolution. That will probably be an independent read as well. Call It Courage will probably be an independent read. This book right here, we've actually read this before. It is Letters from Rivka, and this woman in this family are escaping. I'll read the back. Rivka and her family have fled Russia, Russia's brutal treatment of the Jews for a new life in America, but the path to freedom is full of terrible obstacles. The humiliation and scrutiny of doctors and soldiers, and deadly typhus that strikes the entire family. Finally, when it seems that they have triumphed over every possible hardship, the doctors refuse to let Rivka board the ship to America, and her family must leave without her. So during their journey, there is a part in this book, I think it's around chapter 5, I'm not quite sure, where they go someplace and they need to get like an inspection. When they get an inspection, I'm just trying to get the glare from my glasses off. When they go to get the inspection, they actually have them stripped down, and so that may be like a part that you just want to skip over. I think it was like a couple paragraphs or a page or something like that that I needed to intertwined in my chairs, that I needed to just kind of skip over because we were reading it out loud. But the overall story of that book has a lot of depth. The American Revolution. When the call to arms came early one spring morning in 1775, the men of Lexington arose to answer it. They were simple farmers, smiths, and shopkeepers, but on this day they would lay down their tools and take up their muskets, ready to fight and even die for the cause of freedom. We actually just got another book. I think it was the Boston Tea Party book that we just read. I'm not quite sure though, because there was a couple books, but one of them was an American Girl book, and I never knew. I knew they had the series like Kaya and Kristen. If you haven't read those stories, those are really great stories that go into a girl's day-to-day life during a certain time period. But they also have these other books from American Girl, and this is called The Smuggler's Treasure. It's 1814. America is at war with Britain, and 11-year-old Elizabeth Holder is suddenly alone. Her father, the only family she knows, has been taken prisoner by the British, sent from Boston to New Orleans to live with relatives she never met. Elizabeth soon learns that treasure is hidden in her new home. Their desperate search to find the treasure and buy her father's freedom takes them into a deep world of pirates, smugglers, and enemy ships. So, I think this sounds like a pretty good book, but I will be reading this because I do note at the bottom of this it says pirates, smugglers, and enemy ships. So, if something's kind of quirky, then I'll skip over it. And if it's too much quirky, then we would put that book to the side. A couple things that the kids just picked up that I was okay with. There's just little puzzles for them to do in here. I thought these would be fun for like driving. So there we go. This is one that I'm not quite sure about. I'll probably read a couple chapters of that first to make sure it's okay. This is one of our favorite stories, Sarah Plain and Tall. It is such a cute story. It is. What kind of woman would answer an ad that Anna and Caleb's father places for a wife and a mother? Will she be kind and loving? Will she make their father happy? And when she arrives at the prairie home, will she want to stay? That's what Anna and Caleb want to know as they eagerly make plans for the arrival of Sarah, a warm, wise, wonderful woman whose long awaited visit may change their lonely lives forever. So this woman moves from Maine to the Midwest to become a wife and mother to the children. So it's a really sweet story. There's actually a movie that goes with that as well. So if you read the book, there's a movie that goes with it, and it's really a sweet, sweet tale. This book looked really good. I've never heard of it before, and I kind of wonder why. These independent but intertwined stories follow migrant family through their circuit from picking cotton and strawberries to topping carrots and back again over a number of years as it moves from one labor camp to the next. The little family of 4 grows into 10. Impertinence and poverty defines their lives, but with faith, hope, and backbreaking work, the family endures. I think it's neat because they become a family of 10, and there's very few books that actually have bigger families. So I thought that would be kind of cool, but it sounds like a cool little tale too. I'll put that one over here because I want to read that one fairly soon. So this is Seaward Born. And this is actually kind of interesting because you always hear of like slavery as far as um, like cotton pickers and that type of stuff. But this is actually, well, let's just read it. 13-year-old Michael knows he is lucky. Few slaves in 1805 Charleston were where they wanted to be, but Michael works on docks and ships in Charleston Harbor. Close to the seas, he longs to sail. Life seems good, but when Michael's protective mistress dies, everything changes, and Michael's friend Jim encourages him to run away. Michael's torn. Should he risk everything for the chance of freedom in some unknown place, or should he stay in a safe, worth is it safe? Is goodness is staying safe worth staying a slave? Goodness, one sentence. There's 5 S words. It's like the tongue twister. Okay, you see that? Let's see. Kind of shiny. Okay, getting on board. From the first blacks brought to this country in chains, slaves came from indigenous ways to escape the freedom. Came up with indigenous. Oh my goodness, not indigenous. Okay, let's start this over again. I need a cup of coffee. Slaves came up with ingenious ways to escape freedom. To freedom. During their long, perilous journeys, most would have not survived without the Underground Railroad. There. The Gold Cadillac. There's not too much information on this book, except it's talking about the South where they had like white only, colored not allowed type plaques. So this is there's some pictures in there like that. Oops, I got one of these too for my friend. I don't know if they've read it before, but they're coming up today, and I was like, oh, they have to read this. This is the cutest story ever. Here is another Underground Railroad book that we got. Perilous Road. Chris Brabson hates the Union troops, and he has his reasons. Yankee raiders in Tennessee mountains have stolen his family's newly harvested crops, all the meat they laid by for the winter, and their only horse. In spite of this, Chris's brother decides to join the Union Army. His parents refuse to take either side, but Chris himself has no doubts. He would fight for the Confederacy. Soldier's Heart. This looks pretty good, and it's by Gary Paulson. We've read a couple different books from him. The Hatchet was one. Winter's End, maybe Winter's Promise, something like that. Gary Paulson is his name. In June 1861, when the Civil War began, Charlie Goddard left his farm and enlisted in the 1st Minnesota Volunteers. He was 15. He didn't rightly know what a shooting war meant or what he was fighting for. All he knew was that he did not want to miss out on this grand adventure. An eye for an eye. Samantha Bird is an excellent hunter, providing food for her family's table. She knows she will never raise her musket against a person, but when the winds of the Revolutionary War place her fingers on the trigger to shoot an enemy, will she pull it? In this story set in Virginia, 1775, a Virginia ripe for revolution, Samantha Bird must decide whether or not to seek revenge, an eye for an eye. I actually got 2 of these as well because I was going to ask if my friend would like one of those books too. So this would be something that one of the older kids could just read by themselves, a trader. Let me get the rest of these. I moved over a little bit so my glasses wouldn't be so shiny for y'all. Okay, excuse me. A Journey to America. It was 1938 and something terrible had happened in Germany. Suddenly there was more and more restrictions for the Jews. Yellow stars they had to wear, schools they could not attend, things that they were forbidden to do. The Nazis were hour, and Lisa Pratt was scared. Her father knew they had to escape and left for America in the middle of the night. His promise sent for Lisa, her mother, and two sisters when there was enough money. Until then, they lived in Switzerland. Okay, so I'm going to go over the next ones quick because my sweet dear friend Sarah is outside. So this one looked cute. Next Spring for Oriole. The Cabin Faces West is an excellent book as well. This one I actually just interlibrary loaned, and I was so happy to find it because we're going to Plymouth Plantation. So that is that. Winter People. Adam of the Road. Tolliver's Secret. This is something that they would read by themselves. Buffalo Bill. Paper Cranes. And a book about ducks. So that is, well, I'm saying that's about all, but this is actually going to be the first section of this, and then there's more after this, but it has just been a crazy putting together of videos. So watch that. Getting quite long, but I also want you guys to like hear the backs of some of these books so that I know that a lot of you like me might be looking for good quality reading for your children, and sometimes it's like digging. So if you don't know, my daughter, she has her name is Kaylee Kais, and she has a new YouTube channel, and it's called Don't Judge a Book by Its Cover. So she is reviewing books from a biblical standpoint, so you guys can get kind of a peek into some of the books that she is doing. Obviously it takes time, but she is doing a couple a week. So yeah, that's kind of cool. I wish that there was something like that when my children were younger, because it is difficult to try to find those reviews. Okay, here we go. Tobias, Virginia of Madison, asked the coachman seated beside her, "How is it that I was chosen by Miss Dolly to be service at the president's house?" My daughter, I'll put that one over there. Sons of Liberty. Nobody knows the American Revolution better than Rock Kindle. Rock takes pride in his patriotic forefathers, and his belief that he himself could brave any combat helps him through bad times, when Rock's father wages small wars on the rest of the family. But when he helps his best friend run away from home, Rock begins to question the bonds that hold his own family together. He knows he would never be a traitor to his father and would never desert his family. So why is it he wishes to escape from his own home so powerful? So this again, we would need to read through. I think that's a blessing when you're reading out loud to your children is if you need to stop a book, then you can explain why you need to stop a book, and be okay with that, so that they know later on when they're reading how to stop themselves and to say, oh, I really probably shouldn't be reading this. And I try to have most of the books. I mean, like that book sounded okay, but I can think in the back of my head, like, I'm thinking in the back of my head, okay, is he going to be disrespectful to his father? And if so, like, we may need to discuss some of those disrespectful to the father type issues that may come up. But it could not. It's, you never know. I'm just kind of mentioning those things because those are like triggers that I kind of hear, like as I'm reading them out loud, like we might have an issue with that. Okay, so this is Making Bombs for Hitler. Her neighbors wearing a yellow star were all taken away, but Lida is not Jewish. She will be fine, won't she? But when she cannot escape the horrors of World War II, Lida's parents are ripped away from her and she is separated from her beloved sister. The Nazis take Lida to the brutal work camp, where she and other Ukrainian children are forced into backbreaking labor. When Lida is assigned to make bombs for the German army, she can't stand the idea of helping the enemy. Then she has an idea. What if she sabotages the bombs and the Nazis? She can do so Can she do so without getting caught? And if she's freed, will she ever find her sister? Winter camps. When Tough Boy and sister go to live with Natalie, the old, oh, I'm going to say this wrong, a Baskin Indian, they know their life will be different. But right from the start, Natalie is determined to teach the children the old ways. Surviving the severe Alaskan winters takes special skills, and Natalie is determined that Tough Boy and sister will acquire them. Hang on Thousand Trees with Ribbons. It's the story of Phyllis Wheatley. Kidnapped from her home in Senegal and sold as a slave in 1761, a young girl is purchased by a wealthy Wheatley family of Boston. Phyllis Wheatley, as she comes to be known, has an eager mind and a knack for learning that leads on an unusual path for a slave. When Wheatleys discover Phyllis's talent for writing poetry, they begin to mold her future by having her perform for influential guests. Eventually, she is sent to England, where her work is finally published, the first book of poetry by African American women. Despite her great achievement and the fame that follows, Phyllis is troubled about her way of life. All the trappings of success do nothing to change the fact that she is still a slave. So, this is just a fun book. And my son, who is 13, he is beginning to read. We let our children read when they are ready to read. Ready to read is when they want to read and when they are able to comprehend what they are reading. And so we just kind of go at their pace until they're ready to like move on and move. I found that boys usually were later than girls. That said, he also has some learning disabilities. So he saw these. There was actually a series of them. I would consider these kind of like these are twaddle read. There's no real purpose in this book. They're not like going to get an education from reading this book, but they're reading. So he found a bunch of these books. He has them with him. They're still at the festival because they're selling some things there. And yeah, so these are just fun little books. There's nothing wrong with them. My older daughter, she read these in her free time as well. So there's a bunch of different animals, and it just gives like their tail as animals. So those would be twaddle. I think a lot of these are probably twaddle-ish. My computer's freezing up. So Magic Treehouse. Magic Treehouse, I allow them to read some of the Magic Treehouse, not all. And I've had older children kind of read some of them so that we know which ones are good and which ones are not. So I was able to get, I don't know, it looks like maybe 12 Magic Treehouse. These are again twaddle reading. There's not a lot of like there's no truth in them. It's just kind of made up stories. These children go back into like a period of time that is like a time in history usually, but not always. They have some that talk about like dinosaurs. The dinosaur one isn't good. I'm trying to think. There's a couple other ones that like say witch or magic like in the title itself that we wouldn't even like look at. They are called Magic Treehouse, basically like because they are like being transported back into another time through this treehouse. You guys probably have already heard them, but to me, those are twaddle reading. My daughter, she wanted me to read this. So this is kind of a free true story. It's Somebody who lived in Key West, Florida, I guess they kind of wrote a book about dolphins because they worked like with the dolphins. So there might be some learning in there, but she was really excited to see that one. She also picked up this book. This has just different things like this, different positions. I honestly probably would not pick this book up because to me, this is kind of like schoolish. It's kind of like the style that like a school teacher would be like, okay, you need to know what a World War vet POW is and who was this man. I would rather read like a story about that person's life and so that they would know what they did. But she picked this up and I am definitely going to read it to her and to them. These books are super cute, and when they're first learning to read, it's very encouraging because they can read the book and it only has like 3 words on that page. So they feel like, oh, I'm reading. So it's really kind of cool. And now, the little girl who loves Native American histories and horses found this book. Has both of it. The Girl Who Loved Wild Horses. So she is super excited about me reading this one. All of my children enjoy books that talk about different animals. So this is a book about pandas. And then I had, I don't know if it's, oh, maybe it's in here. I picked up a couple more down there. Yep. I'll go through these small ones real quick. So I have another one that's like that. I'll just go through these. Sis was in the small section. Thunder at Gettysburg. This actually is, it's kind of written poetry style. And we went to Gettysburg this past year, so I thought it'd be cool. This looked kind of interesting. Sometimes books like this, I'll just have them out, and then the kids will like find a section and they'll be like, oh, what are they doing here? And we'll read more about it. I won't necessarily sit there and read through the whole thing. They may have older siblings read some, and sometimes they won't, but they'll be able to see the pictures and what it's basically about. Claire, a slave and seamstress on home plantation, knows the Underground Railroad can lead to her freedom. The only problem is, how will she find it? By piecing together scraps of cloth with scraps of information gathered from other slaves, she fashions a map so secret that even the master won't suspect. I love the illustrations in that book too. If you lived in colonial times, these are always fun books. There's a bunch of titles if you lived in titles. So that looked fun. This was just a really short thing. It says History on the Run. I don't know. It was just a small little thing. I thought they might enjoy it. And then, let's see. Indian Captive. You can't go, Kate, her mother said. It's too dangerous. I have to go, Mother, Kate answered. Someone may still be alive in Honey Creek, and I have to stop the Midnight Express. This is a true story of a brave girl who saved many lives during a terrible storm long ago. More than anything, Clara wants to learn to read, but her papa tells her farm people like us do not have time to read. Then Mrs. Mary arrives in big black wagons filled with many, many books. Miss Mary will teach Clara to read, and Clara promises Papa she will read only when her work is done. So this was the other mom and baby one that I was thinking about. So this has like elephants, mom and baby elephants. And books like this can just really engage the mind and open up questions. Happy New Year. 1934 was a dusty, dry, hot year, so I say good riddance to it. When Gampa and Gamma came to visit, they gave me this journal. My brother Floyd got one too. He wants to be an artist. I always and is always scribbling. Father thinks Floyd is a silly dreamer. Can't eat those pictures you make, can you? He says. But it doesn't seem like farming's filling our bellies these days either. Will the rain ever come? Rosie, age 11. It is Rosie's journal, the story of a girl in the Great Depression. Beaver gets lost. My daughter said that she had read this book and it was super cute. So, the treasure. And so that is about it. That is the review of all the books that are here. Not really a review, I guess going over what books we got. So, yeah, I hope you guys enjoy what we got. Those are all free books. I like not to spend any money on books or very little money on books. So, things like that at the Grange, yard sales, library book things. If I have to buy a book, usually what I'll do is I'll go on to Thrift Books. And if you're a teacher, you can sign up for their teachers program, and the already better like Thrift Books turns into even better